I'm Kamil. I'm a senior front-end developer and a team leader at NetGuru. It's a software and consulting company based in Poland. And I believe that the culture of work is a little bit different than in startups, but many problems we face in a software house remain the same. And as a professional, I faced most of the following problems. And I'm pretty sure that many of you did too. So, as an engineer, on the other hand, I'm familiar with solid principles. And I'm sure you'll be surprised that they can be applied to the teams too. And I'll show you how in a minute. First, let's recap the solid principles. What is solid, actually? Is a set of 5 object-oriented programming principles intended to make software more flexible, scalable, and maintainable, promoted by Robert C. Martin, known also as Uncle Bob. And here's my photo with an Uncle Bob. We've met this year on Agile Summit in Greece. And back to the topic, we've got 5 principles. First one is single responsibility principle, which tells us that every class should have only one responsibility. Second one is open-closed principle, which means that every class should be open for extension, but closed for modification. Third one is list of substitution principle, and it tells us that we should always be able to replace the parent class with its subtypes without affecting our application at all. Fourth one, interface segregation principle, means that generic interfaces are worse than client-specific interfaces. And the last one, dependency inversion principle, tells us that we should rely on abstractions, not on the concretes. So let's go to the first problem, which is too many responsibilities. And it may look like this when we're trying to do this. Imagine we have a project team with a few members, and the developer is also a project manager. It's not a very unusual situation, but it's not very effective, because when we need to split our attention between completely different tasks, we're not as much effective as we would be with only one responsibility. So, most projects should consist of project manager, developer, and quality assurance specialist. At least 3 persons with completely different responsibilities. And every team member should have his own single responsibility. Second problem, doing different than expected. Sometimes we're trying to do something we're not supposed to. For example, we try to manage the project, ignoring the fact we've already got project manager. Maybe because we think he's not doing his best, or maybe because we think we're better at it. But actually, the reasons doesn't really matter. The key is to do what we do best and talk about the rest. So if you think that something may be done differently, or you've got a different idea to solve some problems, feel free to share with a team, but don't try to take over someone's role. So don't change your base responsibility, but feel free to extend your skills constantly. So there's nothing wrong with learning something new from, for example, marketing or business, but we shouldn't change our base responsibility. And the last one, do what you do best and help the others. This leads us to the third problem, which is pretty often, I guess, because let's face it, we all love new technologies. But the problem is that hype-driven decisions may lead to unpredictable consequences. And these consequences are almost never good. So, we all are tempted, but with all new frameworks, all new libraries, and all of this new stuff around. But we don't want to make the situation look like this. So, we jump into the project, and we don't know where to start. And avoiding this is actually pretty simple. The point is that every developer with a similar skill set or the same skill set should be able to jump in and start working right away without any additional effort. We should be interchangeable, and that's how we should behave and write our code. So, few bullet points. We should always think about the others. So, when we are working in a software house with a variety of different projects where developers rotate between them, we must have in mind that at some point, some other developer may come into the project. So let's make it easy for him. We shouldn't use immature, not battle-tested solutions, especially on production. We should explain our unusual decisions, for example, in the comments. And we should use linters to be sure that we follow our project style guide. So don't try to be a rock star. Be a sensible developer. Think about the others. Fourth problem is lack of business attitude. We've talked a lot about the business at this conference yesterday, especially, and we all focus on a great code. We all want to make this code as good as possible, but we don't always think about the business. And it's considered fine because sometimes it's hard to embrace the business, especially when working in a software house. Products vary, developers rotate, and we may not feel the whole business as we should. But we still need to be aware of the main goal of the building process, which is not refactor for the sake of refactoring. It's delivering the product, working product. So don't do more than client expects you to. And if you think that some part of the code needs refactoring, that's perfectly fine, but let the team knows about it. Let the client knows about it. Never make decision yourself, because this can, for example, make some problems with the other members of the team. For example, you can block their jobs because of your refactoring thing. You had to implement something in 2 days, and it took like a week because of your decisions. So it's extremely important to remember that our job affects the job of the other members of the team. So, interface segregation principle. Focus on client needs and only the things you really need to fulfill them. Because doing multiple different things at once is never a good idea. And the last problem I want to talk about is wrongly defined needs. And it's pretty often, I guess. Let's say we've got a small 3 members project team, and I'm a project manager who don't actually dive into the technical details very much. I've got a developer, and he's working fine. He's perfect, actually, in what he's doing, and the project success rely on him, on this particular developer. And one day, let's assume his wife calls and says, okay, he won't be able to work, he had an accident, so for 2 months, he won't be in the job. And despite the empathy fact, I've got a problem, because my project, my product, relied on this particular person, not on the particular skill set, because I really didn't care about the technical stuff. I wanted him, and he was my man, right? So I want this guy, not the guy with some kind of skills. And the solution for this is simple, and it's dependency inversion principle. So we shouldn't rely our project or our product on particular persons. We should rely our product on particular skill sets. So every time something wrong happens with our team, we know how to replace them. I know it may sound not very human, but especially when working in a software house where there are a lot of different projects and the developers are rotating between them pretty often, it's extremely important to know what actually you need. And the last thing I want you to remember, and probably that's the most important thing when working with teams, is that teammates are not your competitors, because you've got the same objective: to deliver the product, good product, and working product. So, play fair, be part of it, and be